So I've got the title screen up there, and you can see it's titled Arterial Blood Gas Analysis. But actually, I don't teach arterial blood gas analysis. I actually teach acid-base balance, because that's the important principle you need to try and get your head around, acid-base balance. So let's crack on with that. Right. So the acid that we're talking about in the body that we need to get rid of are hydrogen ions. Okay. It's something that is generated by lots of different processes in the body. And the body needs to keep a strict regulation of those hydrogen ions. So it needs to keep them within very tight boundaries. And the important thing to note there is that hydrogen ions, as hydrogen ions will go up, then the pH will go down. And as hydrogen ions go up, then the pH will... Oh, I said that right. I've said that the wrong way. Right. Hydrogen ions go down, pH goes up. Hydrogen ions go up, pH goes down. Okay. So if you get more and more and more hydrogen ions, your pH will start to drop. Now, many years ago, when I first worked in Heartlands Hospital, we didn't used to measure pH. We used to talk about hydrogen ions, but essentially you're talking about exactly the same thing for purposes of interpreting blood gases or acid-base analysis. So keep that in your head, that it's hydrogen ions that are important, and that will make one of the scary formulas coming up hopefully make more sense. And don't be scared by this formula. Okay, don't think, right, he's going to go far too deep for me now, I'm not going to understand this. Please bear with it, and let me know at the end. Hi VJ, and let me know at the end if it helped you, because I'm hoping it will. Okay, so we need to balance acid production with acid elimination. And acids are produced by normal metabolism, as you can see here. Hang on, I haven't got the main screen. Sorry. Hang on. This is what you need to see. I'll go back a screen. I am getting better at this slowly. The hydrogen ions thing, as I've just said, hydrogen ions go up, pH goes down. Hydrogen ions go down, pH goes up. Really important that you understand that. This is what the body's trying to do in acid-base balance. It's trying to keep this balance going. So we need to make sure that acid production and acid elimination are in balance, if you like. And acids are produced by normal metabolism. So in phospholipids, proteins break down into acids as well. Carbohydrates essentially will break down into acids. There's a lot of chemistry here, which, perfectly honest, a lot of it I don't understand. But this is the way I understand acid-base balance. So I'm hoping that it will help you understand as well. So, scary formula. Right, we need to take our time a little bit here. My viewer figures might just suddenly plummet because you're all frightened of this formula, but please don't be. So this is where I've got to try and work with a pen. So bear with me, because this is taking a bit of practice. Right, so this is what's going on in the body, okay? The body can distribute these hydrogen ions by combining them or uncombining them with other things and moving them around the body to get rid of them as is necessary. Okay, so you can see, first of all, we talk about, what color have I got? Let's go with this nice blue. So you can see here we've got, hang on, yeah, we've got, I thought it was meant to be blue, but apparently not. Okay, we've got our pH, and our pH needs to be 7.35 to 7.45. Now, the reason it needs to be within those boundaries is to do with our proteins mainly. We've got many proteins in our body, a lot of which provide really vital functions. And these proteins are raveled up into little balls, if you like, and they form certain shapes. And within those shapes, they create a kind of lock mechanism. And it's the lock and key mechanism with other proteins or with other parts of the body that ensure that our body can function properly. Now, if the pH falls without these parameters, so below 7.35 or above 7.45, then what happens is these proteins unravel. It's called denaturing, okay? So as they start to unravel, their lock no longer forms the right shape. And as a consequence of that, they can't work. And a lot of the things in our body will stop working. You know what it's like, the patients with really, really acidotic, and I will talk about acidosis a lot here rather than alkalemia. Let's get those terms right. So acidemia and alkalemia. For me, I encounter an awful lot more acidemia than I do alkalemia, and I think probably you'll be the same as well. Okay, so we know the range that we need to be in. And over here, we can see our hydrogen ions. So as the body creates hydrogen ions, it needs to maintain its balance. And one of the ways that it does that is with this very important substance. Oh, hang on, it's all going pear-shaped. Hold on a second. With this very important substance, please don't mess me about. Yeah, so this is bicarb. So this is the bicarbonate. This is what you'll often hear referred to as the buffer. Okay, so what will happen is, because hydrogen ions can't travel around the body on their own, they just can't. They have to be bound to something in order to move around the body. And the body's way of doing this is by combining it with bicarb. So these two added together then create this. So this is carbonic acid. Okay, so the two have combined together, so they've given us H2CO3. Okay, this can now travel around the body, transporting the hydrogen ions to wherever they need to go to, and therefore helping to maintain this balance. And what they can then do, it can either be transported around the body and go over to the kidneys, and the kidneys will then dissociate, and the kidneys will pee out the hydrogen ions, okay, to maintain the balance. So the kidneys obviously play a very important part in your acid-base balance. The other way they can go is that it can go round the body. It can dissociate again. So now obviously it's going to dissociate into water, and I'm sure you don't need me to write this, but I will anyway, carbon dioxide. And obviously we can then breathe out the carbon dioxide. So if you understand that, you can then understand that your carbon dioxide is the respiratory side, and your bicarb is the metabolic side. Now we'll come back to the way that the kidneys work, and there's an important issue with the bicarb that will give you some clues about the patient as well. So this is essentially the formula. Now I hope now I've broken it down, it isn't quite so scary. It just helps you understand, I think, the processes that are going on, and how I'm going to help you understand whether somebody has an acidosis or an alkalosis, and why that might be depending on their illness. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So I just need to rub all this out. He says, rub out, you bugger. Why are you not rubbing out? I don't know why it's not rubbing out. Rub out. Okay, let's just move on to the next slide, and hopefully that will all disappear. There we go. Brilliant. Okay, so let's talk about this. Obviously, it's really important. There's no point me just giving you blood gas samples without some reference. Okay, so you need to know what's wrong with the patient to help you understand what's going on in this process. So if we just talk about what's going on up here first, I want to change color and it doesn't seem to want to let me. Let's try the blue. Okay, so these are the normal ranges. Okay, you're just going to have to learn these. There's no easy way of doing this. These are the normal ranges. These are often printed on your blood gases anyway, aren't they? But just have them in your head. They're not that hard to remember. So if a patient has a pH of less than 7.35, they are said to have an acidemia. If it's greater than 7.45, they're said to have an alkalemia. Equally, if their PaCO2, and remember these numbers are the wrong way round, if you like, if their PaCO2 is greater than 6, they have an acidosis. If it's less than 4.5, they have an alkalosis. your bicarb normal range. And again, these numbers vary slightly from machine to machine or from textbook to textbook, but these are the average kind of figures that I see. So if your bicarb is less than 22, then you have an acidosis. If they're greater than 26, you have an alkalosis. Okay, so acidemia, alkalemia, acidosis, alkalosis. Okay, so let's start with the first example. So a young man suffered with a head injury during a rugby match. Great game. Initially, he was not knocked unconscious. However, he has become increasingly drowsy. On the way to hospital, the paramedics have inserted an oropharyngeal airway and given him high flow oxygen. Arterial blood gas analysis reveals. Now, we do need to know how much oxygen he's on, because if you don't know how much oxygen somebody's on, their PaO2 is actually quite hard to interpret. So if doctors say to you, for example, all right, his PaO2 was 10, so that's great, isn't it? It's great if the patient's on air. It's not so great if the patient is on 15 litres via a non-rebreathe. So that's important. So it's always important if you take a blood gas to note down on the gas how much oxygen the patient was on, because obviously it's going to change the treatment. However, to talk about acid-base balance, I don't really talk about the oxygen at all. It is important to talk about, and if you are sitting an OSCE or an OSLA or whatever, you will need to refer to the oxygen levels, okay? But I'm not going to talk about that for now. Let's talk about and break this down. So we've got a pH of 7.22. Remember our references. So our pH is less than 7.35. So we have an acidemia. Now we need to know what's causing that acidemia. Why have our patients' hydrogen ions gone up? What's caused that to happen? Why are they not excreting their hydrogen ions? Or why has the balance just been kicked out of play? Let's just carry on. We now need to look at our PaCO2. Now, our PaCO2 is 9.2. Now, if you remember here, these numbers are the wrong way around. So our PaCO2 is greater than 6. So that means we have an acidosis. Okay, so you're thinking, okay, so acidemia and an acidosis, right? We also then need to look at the bicarb. And once I've told you what we've got here, I'll try and explain to you exactly what's happening as far as this formula at the top is concerned. Let's look at our bicarb now. So our bicarb is 25.4, which actually falls pretty much smack in the middle of this range here. So as far as acidosis or alkalosis goes, our bicarb, I'm going to call it neutral. Okay, so what you need to now say is that I have an acidemia. You then need to look at what part of that blood gas is telling you what's causing the acidemia, what's driving the acidemia, and that will be the section that's in the same part. So if acidemia and acidosis, we've got to remember that this was our PaCO2. And if you remember, that was on this side of the formula. And if you remember again, that was the respiratory side. So what we've got here is an acidemia driven by the respiratory side. So what's happening basically with this guy is that he's not breathing terribly effectively. So our hydrogen ions are building up as they would do normally. And one of the functions we use to blow off those hydrogen ions through this formula here, being combined with your carbonic anhydrase here, combining and then breaking down from water and to carbon dioxide, that's not working terribly. He's not breathing quickly enough to breathe this out. So basically, he's got himself a respiratory acidemia. Okay, so he's neutral. His bicarb hasn't changed. So this element, because it's a fairly acute event, and we'll come back to the acute and chronic part of the bicarb in a slide or two, hasn't really been able to compensate yet. And we'll talk about compensation in a moment as well. So this is a respiratory acidemia with no compensation. Okay, I hope that's making sense so far. Right, let's move on to the next slide. And I'm going to give you a little system as well that I often recommend to people who are not that great on blood gases. Right, I need to rub these out, don't I? Please work. No, bear with me. Yeah, great. So let's rub all this out. Bear with me. It's really hard writing with one of these tablets. It takes a lot of practice, believe me. Everyone makes it look so easy, but it's actually quite hard. Right, okay, so let's go to our next example. So a man has suffered a witnessed out of hospital arrest. Unfortunately, it was 67 minutes before the ambulance arrived, during which time no resuscitation was attempted. The paramedics subsequently restored a spontaneous circulation. He's brought into hospital, intubated with a pulse of 120 beats a minute and a good blood pressure. His Glasgow coma score is 3. So what does our gas show us? Okay, again, I'm going to skip over the PaO2 for a moment. Let's look at the pH. So again, our pH, and what I'm going to do is use what I call tic-tac-toe. And if you want lots of examples on these, go to YouTube and type in ABG tic-tac-toe. And there's people who've provided lots of examples for you to work through, which is where I discovered this. And I find it immensely helpful for people who are not that familiar with gases. So let's just go through the tic-tac-toe process. So his pH is 7.18. Remember, that's less than 7.35. So I'm going to put pH in the acid column. Okay, that's pH dealt with. Next, I'm going to look at the PaCO2. So my PaCO2 is 6.5. Okay, so that's only just acidotic. All right, so that is also going to go in. Okay, and then our bicarb is also very, very acidotic. What I'm going to do actually is change that slightly because this is going to muddy the waters. Let's assume for a minute that actually our PaCO2 was 6, okay? Because that's just going to confuse you for the first example. So let's just get rid of that. Let's call it 6. No reason why it shouldn't be. We'll call it 6, and that means that we're going to put our PaCO2 in the neutral column. And now our bicarbonate is 15. So our bicarbonate is well over in the acid status. So I'm going to put my HC3CO3 in there. So now you need to work out, what have we got here? What kind of acidemia have we got? So we've got an acidemia. So you look to see that, and then you check to see which of the two elements, the respiratory element or the metabolic element, is in the same column. And here it's the bicarb. So this is the metabolic component. So that tells you that we have a metabolic acidemia. And because your PaCO2, the respiratory side, is in the neutral column, there hasn't been any compensation. So there is no compensation. What do we mean by compensation? Well, really, this is just whereby the bicarb has been driven quite low. And if the bicarb was even lower than that, you might find that the PaCO2 was also beginning to rise. So our PaCO2, if it was given long enough, might be, for example, 8 or 9. And what's happening then is that the respiratory side is also trying to join in to help compromise. And you'll see this in the DKA. So if we do a DKA, and I don't think I did this as an example, but the main principle here is that you look at the column that's got the pH in it, be it acid or alkali. You then find which component is in the same column. Is it the metabolic component or the respiratory component? If it is, then you will, if it is the metabolic, then you've got a metabolic acidemia with no compensation because that hasn't moved, or you've got, or if the PaCO2 had moved across, then you might have some compensation. But let's just go on and talk about that on the next slide, because I don't think I explained that as well as I wanted to. Right, let's rub these out. Oh, rub out your buggers. Okay. So the next one is a lady with a known COPD. Okay. A lady with a known COPD has presented to hospital with increased difficulty in breathing and a worsening cough. She's been placed on 35% oxygen via a Venturi mask. She's normally on long-term oxygen therapy of 1 litre per minute. And this is what her blood gas shows. Okay. So simple. Let's change the color just to make it a bit more interesting. So we go to there, and then we go to there. Right. So pH 7.22. So we know again, less than 7.35, we have an acidemia. So pH goes in that column. Then we look at her PaCO2. Her PaCO2 is 10.1. Remember, that's on this side as well. This is flipped round, these numbers. It often throws people, that one. These numbers are the wrong way around. So we've got 10.1. So she's got a acidosis. So you're going to put her PaCO2 in that column. So now we know already, because we've got the respiratory component. This is the respiratory component in the same column as your pH. So we've got a respiratory acidemia. But we haven't finished yet because we've not looked at our bicarb, have we? And that's important. So we're going to look at her bicarb, and now her bicarb is 38.4. So this is very much on this side. So you put that right over here. So HCO3. So she's got some metabolic compensation. And I'll explain, this is a better example to explain the compensation thing. Right. So she's retaining carbon dioxide. So patients with COPD, they retain carbon dioxide. We know that. And one of the reasons is that the elastic tissue in the lung has been broken down by the neutrophils. So basically, when you breathe in, it's an active process. Your alveoli stretch. And when you breathe out in a normal, healthy lung, those elastic tissues help the recoil. If those elastic tissues have been broken down as you breathe out, it doesn't recoil. So you're not expelling your carbon dioxide as effectively as you should be. So breathing out is their problem rather than breathing in, which is why they gradually get bigger and bigger and bigger lungs. Now she has got increased difficulty in breathing and a worsening cough. Very highly likely she might have an element of bronchitis, or she's got a chest infection. So now she's got lots of secretions in her airways as well, which makes the expulsion of that carbon dioxide even harder. So as a consequence, her carbon dioxide levels have been going up and up and up because she can't breathe it out. But why is the bicarb so high? Surely the bicarb would be low. You'd be using all that bicarb to try and mop up all those hydrogen ions that she's creating to then move it over there and get rid of it. But the problem now is that she is a chronic COPD. Now, one important principle to know is that if you go out running, you can increase your respiratory rate very quickly. You can almost do it voluntarily. If I want to sit here now, I could hyperventilate quite happily. I can just make myself do it. So that's quite a fast compensatory mechanism. So you can breathe quickly, fairly quickly. What can't happen is you can't increase your bicarb levels particularly quickly. Bicarbonate is made in the kidneys, and the kidneys can only increase the production of that over quite a long, slow process. It takes a while for that to happen. So why is her bicarbonate so high? Well, it's high because she has COPD. She has a chronic condition. So what's happened is that her CO2 has become chronically high, and the body has to find a way for her to be able to get rid of that carbon dioxide. And the only other way she can do it is by combining it with water, sending it round the body and excreting those hydrogen ions through another mechanism. So the kidneys need to overproduce bicarbonate, but they can only do that very slowly. But eventually, if the condition goes on for long enough, those bicarbonate levels will just get higher and higher and higher and higher. This is why she has a very high bicarbonate level. So this tells you that this is a chronic condition. If her bicarbonate levels, for example, I don't know, were 20 because she'd used a bit of it to try and compensate, then you would say to yourself, right, this is an acute condition. She probably doesn't have COPD. It's just a lady who's got a bronchitis or a chest infection that's fairly new to her. Her bicarbonate levels haven't built up in the past. So this is fairly acute for her. So that's the difference. So we've got respiratory acidemia with a metabolic compensation. So we know it's a respiratory acidemia because the pH is in the acid column here. We know it's respiratory because it's on the same side as the PaCO2. And we know there's some compensation because the bicarb is all the way over to the other side, trying to help compensate for this high PaCO2. And the whole point of this system is then to try and get this pH to a normal level. Now, it's very hard for complete compensation. Very often your COPD patients will sit at 7.3, 7.34. They won't quite fully compensate. It's very hard for that to happen. But that's what's happening in this gas here. I hope this is making sense. Right, I want to draw another example because I think there's another important one that's going to be quite useful. So let me just rub all this rubbish out. If you guys could just let me know if this is being helpful in the comments, please. If you've got any questions, I can see your comments, so please, by all means, ask away. But I'm going to give you another example, which I might need to. Right, let's just draw it in the corner. So just let's ignore this now. This is a different patient. Okay, so let's just ignore this. So now we've got a young chap who is a known diabetic. Okay, he is presented to A&E. He's semi-conscious. He's breathing quite quickly. He looks terribly, terribly dry. And when we measure his ketones are elevated, as is his blood glucose. Okay, so I think you know where we're going here. So his pH is 7.1. His PaCO2 is 2.2, and his bicarb is, let's say his bicarb is now down to 10. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, clearly from my description, let's have a different color. Clearly from my description, good, making sense, helpful explanation. Excellent. Thank you. That's good to know. Thank you very much. Kirsty, Michelle, Tom, Denise, Rachel, and Michelle. Thank you for letting me know. Firehorse. It's an interesting name. Firehorse. Great. Okay. So what have we got here? So we've got a DKA. Okay. We know we've got a diabetic keto acidosis. Okay. So there's a clue there. So what's happening is that he's using ketone bodies now. Those ketone bodies are breaking down and they're forming, yay, these things here. Okay, so hydrogen ions. So with lots of those, and we've got to try, and the body is desperately trying to get those back into balance. And clearly it's failing at the moment because his pH is only 7.1. So again, pH is an acidemia. So your pH goes in that column there. PaCO2, 2.2. Oh my goodness. Okay. So we have an alkalemia here. So his PaCO2 is going to go over there. And then his bicarb is down to 10. So his bicarb goes in this column here. So again, we have an acidemia. We can see that the bicarb is in there, and we know that the bicarb is the metabolic component. So basically, he's dropped his bicarbonate stores, trying to mop up all these copious amounts of hydrogen ions being broken down with this ketoacidosis. So his bicarb stores have dropped dramatically. And remember, I said that bicarbonate can't be, the levels of bicarbonate can't be built up quickly, very quickly. So he's used all those stores up. and as a consequence, his bicarb is now really low. So we've got an acidemia, and we know we've got a metabolic acidemia. Okay. So why has this gone all the way over here? Well, it's compensating. If it's all the way over on the other column, there's a compensatory mechanism going over here. So now his hydrogen ions, we need to get rid of these hydrogen ions somehow else. So it's combining with this bicarb, sending it over here, and he's just trying to breathe the buggers out as fast as he can. Okay, he gets rid of the carbon dioxide. That's combined as water, so he can pee the water out or whatever. We'll get rid of it somehow else. So his carbon dioxide levels are now dropping dramatically because he's hyperventilating. So his carbon dioxide levels are down in his boots because his body's saying, right, I can't mop them up anymore. The only other way I can get rid of this is to break it up into water and carbon dioxide. Essentially, carbon dioxide is another acid then, if you like. It's not, but you can treat it as such for this. You're going to ask me to talk about base excess. I'm not going to talk about base excess, Malcolm, because if I'm perfectly honest with you, I don't understand it fully myself, and I don't want to just give you bullshit. I will look into it, though, for you and try and understand it, because I don't understand it myself, as I say, and I feel like it's a little hole in my understanding. For me, the base excess is somebody's got a high base excess, and never call it a base deficit. It's always called a base excess. If it's got a high base excess, so it's -10, -11, for me, that always tells me that the patient is dry. That's a simple interpretation for me. High base excess means my patient's dry, okay? But I'm aware that's not the best explanation. Now I've lost my train of thought. Right, where was I? Metabolic, yeah, and this is compensation, so the patient's just trying to breathe it out. So we've got a metabolic acidemia with respiratory compensation. Okay, so if you want to interpret these, go ahead and play tic-tac-toe. I think it's a nice, simple way of doing it. So you're going to be, first of all, what's my pH? Which column is it going in? Secondly, what's my PaCO2? Which column is it going in? And it may be neutral. Then finally my bicarb, then check to see what's in the same column as your pH, be it alkali or acid. So if your pH is over here and your PaCO2 is also over here, you have, guess what? You have a respiratory alkalemia. Okay? I hope that helps. Go play tic-tac-toe. There's lots of examples out there. If there's any other subjects you want me to explore, or if you want me to do this again in the future, just let me know. As I say, a quick session, quick and dirty, is what I think I'll call these. Next time you get a blood gas, that's the one thing I was going to talk about, the PaO2. Do look at your oxygen. Obviously, just be aware that if you're going to talk about type 1 respiratory failure, you're looking at the PaO2. If you're talking about type 2, you're talking about the PaCO2. So somebody with a low PaO2 is going to be a type 1 respiratory failure. Someone with a high PaCO2 is going to be a type 2 respiratory failure. So one's about oxygenation, the other one's about ventilation. So ventilation is what helps you expel the gases. Oxygenation is obviously about the oxygen levels. You can have people with a mixed picture. They could have a low PaO2 and a high PaCO2. The chronic emphysemas, for example, will often get that, and they'll just say it's a mixed type 1, type 2 respiratory failure. But hopefully then you can then go on and talk about whether it's a metabolic respiratory, mixed metabolic respiratory, you get those as well. The next thing for you to perhaps do, if you can interpret the gas and you know it's a respiratory acidemia, perhaps then explore the causes of respiratory acidemia, the causes of a metabolic acidemia, because just knowing what the gas is doesn't necessarily tell you what's wrong with the patient, but it gives you some big clues. Okay, I hope that's been helpful. Thanks for coming. There was quite a lot of you there, so that's great. Go over type 1 respiratory failure and type 2. Yes, Rachel, I will. You've given me a nice idea there. I hope that's helpful. Thank you very much. If you're on my Facebook page, if you could like the page, that's great. I've got a website as well, criticalcarepractitioner.co.uk. I also have podcasts. You can find those Critical Care Practitioner podcasts in whichever podcast server you use. I've also got a YouTube channel. I know, I'm a busy man. And one of my top videos there was the one on proning, why we prone. If you want a session on proning, happy to do that as well. Just let me know. I can tell you why we prone, not how we prone. I think everybody knows how we prone now, but I can give you some of the physiology and science behind it. Okay, thanks very much.